Hello and welcome to Higher Thinking on Higher Ed. I am Sharlyn Carrington of Content Strong Communications, the communications and marketing partner of choice for post-secondary small businesses and nonprofits. Today, I am so excited to continue diving into the trends and the challenges encountered by leaders in higher ed, communications and marketing professionals in general. But I'm honored today to welcome Dr. Joseph Brennan to the hot seat. Joe is currently the Vice President of Communications and Marketing at Montclair State University. He is a seasoned communications leader who has helped shape the reputations of major public universities, including Montclair, Buffalo, Albany, Iowa. At Montclair, he led a strategic shift to a digital-first, data-informed approach that elevated the institution's brand and enrollment. Known for his calm in crises and clarity and complexity, Joe brings a rare blend of strategic thinking, ethical leadership, and real-world experience to higher ed communications. Thank you so much again, Joe, for being here and bringing your expertise to this conversation. How are you?
I'm great, Sharlyn. Thank you so much for having me on Higher Thinking. I think it's just such a great podcast. And I love the focus on strategy, but also there's practicality, right? So we're not just talking about philosophy and big ideas. You're also giving your listeners a chance to understand how can maybe I could use a little bit of that. And I hope I can share a couple of practical tips that might be valuable takeaways for your crowd as well.
Thank you. I think you will. There's always a tidbit that ideally someone can take away and implement in their own day to day. So, the first question, as you know, is always a little bit of a context check. I mean,
Hmm.
as I mentioned just now, you've led communications through, some of higher ed's most turbulent chapters, I'd say. What are the big picture pressures you're seeing today? How are you helping Montclair kind of navigate through some of those?
Yeah, it's an extraordinary moment, right, for higher education. All kinds of pressures, demographic, economic, here in the States, political,
Yeah.
and on and on. I like to start with let's do an analysis of the landscape. And so I recently did a Michael Porter's five forces analysis,
Okay.
which helps understand how you compete in a marketplace. And I would say that competitive rivalry is intense. It's not just high, it's off the charts. Institutions are dropping the gloves, rolling up their sleeves, and going after each other's students in ways that I haven't seen in 33 years of doing this work. There's also the ability of students and families to bargain. And
Right.
that's a relatively new phenomenon. But more and more, my colleagues in enrollment management say we've got families walking into the admissions office and holding up offer letters from competitors and saying, can you meet or beat this offer? So it's like, I don't know, car shopping? What's
I've
going
never
on?
I've never heard that before. That's new.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, new and happening more and more. Um, we also have relatively undifferentiated institutions in, let's face it, a mature industry.
Right.
So I'm an MBA, so I'm going to talk business speak for a minute. But there aren't tremendously new opportunities to introduce higher education to consumers who have never thought of it and don't think they want it, right? The growth essentially comes from a subset of the population that sees the value and wants it. So how do we compete is the key question. If you've got intense rivalry, bargaining power from your buyers, and undifferentiation, I think the answer there is to compete on your value proposition, your
Right.
differentiation, and the strength of your brand. So if I can unpack those things for a minute, competing on value proposition. Here's what I see going on right now, and I'm really worried about it. I see more and more institutions cutting prices, well,
Mm-hmm.
offering more financial aid. It's discounting,
Right.
call it what you will, but it's price cutting just to make the numbers. Now,
Right.
here's what's seductive about that. It's kind of like that first hit of crack cocaine. It works the first few times you do it, but it puts you into what I call the discount doom loop. So as you cut your price, you're starving your institution of revenue. That revenue then isn't being put back into providing a superior experience and higher quality. It actually justifies a lower price. People are like, well, your quality's not that great, but the price isn't too high either. You keep going around and around, and at the bottom of the doom loop is commodification. You are undifferentiated service that anybody thinks they can get from anywhere, and it's all the same. So you just buy on price. You never want to teach your consumers to buy on price because it'll put you in that place. What's the antidote? I call it the value proposition updraft. What we
Right.
do instead is resist the temptation to discount and focus intensely on delivering value. Value is the relationship of what you get to what you pay. So rather than talking about price, price, price and finance, 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 we talk about the value. What's the payoff? What's the quality of the experience? What's the outcome for the student? If we emphasize that, we drive up the quality numerator and then the price denominator is what it is, but our ratio is higher. So we want to do that. For marketers, it's about communicating that value proposition strongly. However, that's not enough. In an undifferentiated industry, if we're going to command a price that's a little higher than the discounters, we also have to be seen as not only offering quality, but offering something meaningfully different, something that people want. And I would submit to you, this is where the strength of your brand comes in. Brand strength primarily comes from emotional connections. Let that sink in for a minute. Scientists have shown that people evaluate brands the same way they evaluate other human beings. So when I first meet a new person, my mind is wired to do two things, to answer two questions. What's this person's intention toward me? Do they want to help me? Do they want to hurt me? And are they capable of carrying that out? So
Right.
if I'm walking down the proverbial dark alley and I see a looming figure coming at me, and I decide that, hey, this person might be a mugger who wants to steal my wallet or my purse,
Mhm. Mhm.
that's intention. And then can they carry it out? And then as the figure gets closer, I realize it's an elderly person leaning on a cane and they have a beaming smile on their face.
Right.
They they don't have that intention. And even if they did, they don't really have the capability to take
They
my
carry it
wallet
out.
away from me, right? We evaluate brands the same way. Of the two, the first one, what's your intention? That's called warmth. Warmth is the most important one. It is the influencer. And why is that? Because we fundamentally humans make decisions based in the heart, not in the head, which is a little odd for higher ed because we're all about learning and thinking. And even the
Yeah.
name of your podcast is higher thinking.
Right.
But what's happening really is feeling. So what we're doing at Montclair is we are keeping our price at a mid-tier value point. We are literally the median in our competitive set of 11. There are 5 higher and 5 lower in price than us, sticker price. We
Right.
are also driving very much the value with certain statistics and a lot of testimonials. And we're intentionally delivering a very warm brand, one that's based on relationships that students have with faculty and that they have with each other and the feels of the place. Now, I can do that because this is a wonderful university that literally has a very healthy and warm culture and produces a lot of good value at an affordable price point. So I'm lucky in that regard. Um, but I think this lesson applies to everybody in this hyper competitive marketplace that's undifferentiated, and true growth from new segments is difficult, if not almost impossible.
I mean, you've said so much there, and so many things came to mind. Like the one of the bigger pieces I had initially, as soon as you started talking, was the competitive rivalry piece. Like, why do we think it is more intense? And I'm going to ask you to answer that in a second, but I want you to keep at at the back of your mind this other piece of, the argument people are making, certainly prospective students and families who are looking at higher ed, is shouldn't you be trying to, find a way for students to be able to afford it, right? When we look at some of the new things that higher ed, and not only higher ed, business in general has in place. I mean, you can, take a course online. You don't have to physically, be there. And that impacts, of course, your need to have big, huge, beautiful new buildings and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
And then the other piece of that is really leveraging AI. I mean, a lot of professors and faculty members are also trying to find ways to build that into their own learning, into their own teaching. How do all of those new things also impact a price point for a family that is really interested in going
Yeah,
to a specific university in a specific
yeah.
area and getting a specific type of education or degree? A lot of people are starting to make that argument. Yes, we want a good value education, but it doesn't need to be at the cost that it maybe once
Yeah.
did. So
Yeah.
those are the two big things that came to mind as you were talking, is why is it more
Those
competitive
are
now?
great questions. And there's certainly a narrative about higher ed that the mainstream media perpetuates,
Right.
that it's more and more out of reach for ordinary people. I'm going to dispute that. I think the facts aren't actually in support of that. Certainly, there's ultra high priced institutions, right? But the mid tier, of which I serve one, I
Right.
think is affordable. And let me make the case. It's affordable in relationship to the outcomes. So we have data. It's not our data. It was actually collected by a research firm working for the Wall Street Journal. So it's
Right.
highly credible. And the data shows that for the average graduate of my university in their first year, because they attended this university as compared to any other,
Right.
the average graduate makes 29,000 a year more. So they get a salary bump. Okay.
Right.
Our annual the number two key piece of data is when you take the out of pocket expenses that students and families actually pay, not the sticker price, but what's really coming out, on average, the Montclair University graduate pays her investment back in 20 months. So if you think about it, if I came to you and I said, listen, I have a deal, you give me X thousands of dollars right now, I will pay you back in 20 months. And then every year after that, I will give you another $29,000 in just
Right.
adjusted for inflation. Would you take that deal?
Yeah, of course.
Absolutely, you'd take that deal. You'd be like, wow, I just won the lottery. That's
Yeah.
available to every student on our campus. We serve a population of students that are low income. They're eligible
Right.
for the US Pell Grant, almost half. Almost half are first in their family to come to college, and more than half are members of underrepresented minority groups. So we are
Right.
effectively serving a population that you would say, out of everybody, they have the least ability to afford it. But they're choosing us because they understand I'm making an investment now, but I'm getting it paid back, and I'm getting it paid back in a couple of years.
Right.
So
That's a
uh,
powerful storytelling tool, right? Is this idea to
I,
be able to draw that line directly back, and not
yep,
everyone's able to do that.
and
Right.
it's you can't just look at the price; you have to look at the payback. Right. And then once you do that, which is, let's face it, folks, you don't have to be an MBA to know that's how you evaluate
Yeah.
investments.
Yeah.
Right. And these are smart people. These are very savvy people. And they get it, right? They get it. The second question is, what's the intense rivalry? Why is that? Well, I would submit,
Hmm.
first of all, at least in the States, we are overbuilt. We built a higher ed industry to serve a burgeoning population
Hmm.
starting in the late 40s and going through the 60s and the 70s. There was a huge building boom. And I don't just mean buildings on campuses, I mean whole institutions.
Institutions, right.
Right. That population growth didn't get
We're not seeing that.
sustained. The boomers
Yeah.
didn't have as many children as their parents had. The children of the boomers didn't have as many children, and on and
Right.
on and on. So just and demographics is destiny in many ways in marketing.
Mhm.
So I think
Mhm.
that's what's going on there. Institutions don't close, right? We get going, but unless we're forced to shut down or merge, this isn't the kind of industry that somebody's going to say, you know what, it's just not worth it anymore. The customers aren't there.
Yes.
Let's shut down. Let's pivot our investment to a different category. That never happens. So
Although we're
I
seeing
would,
that now. Right.
well, yeah, we're seeing institutions being forced to close,
Right.
and dozens every year close or be acquired. Um, so and honestly, that shakeout has pain, real pain. I don't want to minimize the pain for
Right.
faculty, staff, students, alumni. However, I think it's good and healthy for the industry. We are consolidating to meet the reasonable level of demand that actually
Man,
exists.
right.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's a really good point that in all these conversations I've had, no one has really brought up. Everyone's sitting here talking about, the enrollment cliff and, there are not enough people and they're struggling to demonstrate value. And that's a really interesting way of putting it. That, like, it's not that necessarily you're unable to demonstrate value. It's just that the demand is not there. And it links it back really to demographic shifts, which I
Yep.
think is a huge
The
point.
demand isn't there. And if you're
Yeah.
not delivering value, if you're not demonstrating value, if you are cutting your way to financial health, which is
Hmm.
impossible,
Hmm.
you will become more vulnerable. It's
Right.
institutions like mine that are thriving. We are in our fourth year of record enrollment, every year larger and larger. Um, so we're bucking a trend, maybe. Uh, but if you're serving an institution or leading an institution that is vulnerable, the strongest advice I can give you is do not wait until
Yeah.
you need to be in the intensive care unit, right?
Yeah.
Start right now finding partners, plotting a new future. You could keep your legacy going through an intelligent tie-up. We did that 2 years ago here at Montclair when we took over or acquired or merged into us
Right.
a small private institution called Bloomfield College,
Right.
and whose mission very closely aligned, population very closely aligned, and campus is only 5 miles away. So it was a
Right.
natural fit. And I give credit to their president and board who went public and said, in another couple years, if we don't find a partner, we will close our doors. And how often do you hear nothing from these institutions until it's too late and they're like,
Too
hey,
late.
yeah, this is it. This is the end of the line. That's all avoidable through, but it's hard. I mean, you've got to go out there and take that risk.
And it is a huge risk when we think about what it means for the brand that you've spent how many ever decades trying to build and having to now reframe that and then prop that back up. That's a really, really interesting case study you've mentioned there. And we're going to have to dig into that one later because I love
Yeah,
that.
we absolutely
Uh,
should. I'd love to come back and talk about it because one of the things we did was intentionally keep the legacy and the brand going. It's the only
okay.
college of the university that has its own logo. Uh, it has, we very intentionally talk about its history and its values.
Right.
And we've kind of maintained Bloomfield College within the bigger Montclair State
Within.
University in a way that lets it continue to deliver value to the populations that it historically served in the manner that it historically served them.
We served it.
Yeah,
That's
and I
really
give a
interesting.
lot of credit to our president, Jonathan Coppell, for insisting from the beginning that this was not a takeover, nor was it a rescue. This was a strategic alliance to allow a valuable institution to continue to serve in new
Right.
ways and gain economies of scale and scope from being part of a
Right.
large public university.
Right. I mean, once again, I'd love to, we're going to have to unpack that, but I would love to hear more about that. This idea that this actually was not a rescue and how that played into the storytelling piece, because I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Shifting gears quickly. I'm thinking about a previous conversation you and I had, and we talked a little bit about culture and talent. I mean, you definitely spoke a bit to me about the importance of, trauma-informed workplace culture, succession planning, thinking about what's happening in the higher ed climate right now and how that really is impacting organizational structure and teams and their ability to carry out their broader mission. What does a resilient, future-ready communications and leadership team look like in this moment? And I think you probably have tons to say on that.
Well, thanks for asking. I'm passionate about it. Let's start with naming the elephant.
Right.
We're all trauma sufferers. We
Right.
just went through a global pandemic that disrupted, not only killed millions of people
Yeah.
and turned lives around, but it disrupted long established habits of how we live, how we work in every nation on earth.
Right.
So let's take a breath and understand that's real. On top of all the other trauma that happens to you because you are a human being, whether you're a victim of violence or you've
Mm.
witnessed some terrible tragedy. Lots of us are walking around with a backpack full of emotional injury.
Right.
And that includes the people that work with and for us.
Right.
So starting with that assumption, then saying, so what does that mean? I think the most important thing is to nurture a sense of safety.
Hmm.
Because when you experience something terrible, one of the things that happens is you automatically begin to shift to see the world as a very unsafe place.
Right.
Um, so let's create safety in the workplace. Safety in the workplace means learning from mistakes and treating misfires as opportunities to improve or to discover something we didn't know rather than punitive environments. So that's a
Right.
big focus for me. We embrace learning. We don't want to, who wants to make mistakes? We don't want to make mistakes. But if you're in a creative industry, you've got to push the edge. You've got to take
Right.
some calculated risks. And people can't innovate if they're afraid to fail. So let's
Right.
take away the fear, right? Stop punishing mistakes and start learning from them. If you're not learning from them, then you need to take corrective action. So
Right.
that's
Right.
sort of number one. Number two is understanding why people actually work. So if I asked you that question, Sharlyn, what would you say? Why do people work?
I think people work to support, honestly, like in a
Yeah,
very
like
honest
straight
way. I
up,
think
like
people
first thing that comes to
straight
mind,
up,
why do people work?
people aren't working because most people aren't working because I love the thing that I do. A lot of people aren't necessarily in that boat. I think most
Yeah.
people are working because they want to support a specific lifestyle, and whether that's their family or their kids or themselves, and they want to be able to take a trip or whatever, they're
Yeah.
supporting a
Yeah.
lifestyle.
That
That's why.
whole eating and having a roof over your head and shoes on your
Basic
children's
human
feet.
needs. Right.
Yeah, that thing's pretty good, right? That's pretty good. But there's more. Turns out there's more. That's important. And in addition, we work because we are hardwired as humans to connect and thrive in groups. So we want communities around us. We need that. It's a deep seated need. We are driven by an inner force to achieve our full potential, to recognize our talents and bring them forward. And I would say that many, perhaps most of us, deep down want to contribute in some way to making the world a better place.
Right.
Those are four reasons. So most employers tend to focus on reason number one, salaries and benefits.
Yeah.
But if we're not paying attention to team environment, learning and development, and contribution to a better world, we are missing 75% of the reason why somebody should work for you
And stay
and
because it's
stay.
the retention piece. Right.
Exactly, exactly. I have this conversation so often with leaders who say things like, I don't understand why my people are so disengaged. We pay well, or we have excellent benefits. Um, I think I understand why. Your team culture is non-existent. You're not investing in people's growth, and you're not drawing the line between the work they're doing and how the world gets to be a better
You're
place,
right.
right?
Right.
This should be easy in higher ed. We're in the making the world a better place business. We
Business.
also
Right.
we're in the business of unleashing human potential. And almost every university has tuition benefits, um, if you want to learn something, where else
Where
than
else are
work
you
in
going to
this
do that?
industry, right?
Yeah.
And team culture. This is where the supervisor, the manager has to really lean in, be aware of culture, cultivate a healthy culture. To me, a healthy culture is one that I already mentioned non-punitive, psychologically safe. I'm also going to say it's strengths based. I
Right.
love the Clifton strengths model. I've used it with 4 teams now, including my current team. If you're not familiar with Clifton strengths, it's based on the idea that rather than trying to correct what is wrong about someone, you focus on where their strengths are
Right.
and you
And build on
position them to leverage
that.
their strengths.
Right.
Right. So if I'm analytical and not real relationship based and communicative, don't put me in a job where I have to be out talking to people and schmoozing. Put me in the back room where I'm crunching numbers
Right.
because that's
Right.
what I'm good at. I'm going to be happier. Right. So that I think is the answer for retention is, and then especially with spotting talent and investing in professional development, create career ladders. Higher ed's bad at that. Think about it. We often think, well, if there's a new position, we're going to go out and find somebody who's done that work. I think we do it because that's how faculty hires are done, right? Someone gets a doctoral degree, they're 27 years old, they get their assistant professor job, and then they become an associate professor and a full professor, and maybe they go on to be a department chair, a dean, a provost, maybe even a president. They
Right.
never leave.
I know
There's
we're seeing
there's
that a
no
lot.
reason to think about retention.
Right.
There's probably a reason to think about shaking it up and squeezing a few people out the door.
And I think we're seeing that more and more. I think that, which is a pain point for some people, depending on where they are in the institution. But I think we're definitely seeing that more and more
Yeah.
in this
So I
climate.
build I build career ladders. In the last 15 months alone, out of my 24 people, I've given 7 promotions.
Oh, you never see that. That's big. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's all about succession planning. And
Right.
it's also about, listen, here's somebody with tremendous potential. They excel in the job they're in now. What's the next step? Because they don't want to just sit there and like,
They
yeah,
don't want
okay,
to
I
see
got this figured out. I'm 35 years old. I'm going to do this for the next 30 years.
that. Hmm.
Uh-uh. And so I love that aspect of giving people the opportunity to shine and grow and unfold and spread their wings.
I think that's particularly important. I mean, much of what you just said, I think is particularly important. But I mean, as we think about the current, as I mentioned, the current climate that we're in and all the changes that we're seeing, the digital disruption, the new tools, it is important to create that environment where people are able to dive in and work within and explore some of the new things that are there that will end up actually benefiting, ideally, the team and the institutional growth, right? If I think about shifting gears a little bit, I mean, we're seeing this decline in public trust in higher education. My question for you, and this is a big question, it's a set of questions really, is, what do you think needs to change or needs to shift in how institutions are showing up in the world? How are you thinking about Montclair's brand in this climate?
Mm-hmm.
And then thinking a little bit about what is working and what isn't. Where are you really seeing that traction in rebuilding trust and driving engagement and recruiting people and keeping people, as you just mentioned? And where are
Mm-hmm.
you still kind of hitting that friction?
I agree with you. We're facing a global crisis in trust.
Yep.
The Edelman Trust Barometer study of 23, 25 countries, it's been repeated every year for almost 30 years.
Forever.
Every single year finds lower levels of trust.
Yeah.
And higher education used to be one of the more trusted institutions. Uh, our trust levels are now somewhere like down around the news media or government,
Why? Why do you
which,
think? Why do you think that is? Pontificate.
yeah, I think it's because trust has to be earned and demonstrated. It involves not just talking your talk, but walking your talk.
Right.
And I
Right.
think that in many cases, higher education has not walked the talk.
Right.
I'll give you one. We've said for a long time that we're stronger learning communities when people of all backgrounds and walks of life are welcome,
Right.
right? That we value diversity deeply for all of the benefits it brings. Yet, Some, and we're seeing this play out in the United States right now, some people looked at that and said, but wait a minute, I'm not really welcome. I have a viewpoint that's different from many of my classmates, but I'm afraid to articulate it in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Or I've got a professor that I think is grading on the basis of my ideology or my identity. Um, so I hear this talk about diversity and everybody's welcome, but I don't feel
Not
welcome.
feeling it.
Now,
Right.
I'm not here to debate whether that's true or not true because I work in the field of public relations and perception is
Yeah.
reality. If
Paramount.
I feel excluded, then I am excluded.
Right.
Right. So we have to walk our talk, right? We have to demonstrate that we're truly putting student interests first. And that's not always the case. Uh, it's not always the case. At some institutions, faculty are rewarded more for research productivity and grants and
Mm-hmm.
publications
Yeah.
than they are for the quality of teaching.
Right. Of course.
Unfortunate, but that's true. And, you know, maybe if the institutions were upfront about that and they just said, listen, we're a research university. You don't come here for the teaching. You come here
Right.
because you get to learn from the best people in the world in their field.
Right.
But you know, they're not going to hold your hand, right?
Right. Right.
They're not going to know your name. Uh, I mean, just at least be honest about it. Some students are going to say, "I'm totally good with that."
Yeah.
The,
Some students want the
right, the
paper.
chance to sit
Right.
in a classroom with a Nobel Prize winner
Right.
is okay if this person's quirky and kind of cranky and kind of doesn't really care who I am. I find value in that, right? But when we try to be all things to all people, what happens? You will always fail at that.
So
So
if
be
I think about
yourself.
So if I think about kind of getting back to the root of the question, then what's working well for you, and this may be a broader assumption, is this idea that Montclair really is sitting in and promoting the value and the experience and the environment of what it is that they provide to students, and that's part of the bigger picture. What's not
At,
working for you guys?
uh,
What's a
what's ne-
challenge?
yeah, the biggest challenge for us right now is the climate of fear that's
Right.
being created by rapid shifts in policy in the United States. I mentioned before that most of our students are from underrepresented groups. We're actually a federally designated Hispanic serving institution. So we have a
Right.
very large number of students from Latina backgrounds,
Right.
and many are sitting in New Jersey, which is a place where people come from all over the world for the opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
right? Many of them have parents who are the first in their family to live in the United States.
Right.
Some, perhaps, may be undocumented, but
Right.
there is a climate of fear rippling through. And that's right now causing students to sit on the sidelines and say, well, maybe, I don't know, maybe I should work. Like, what
Right.
happens if my family is torn apart?
Right.
What happens if we have to leave? I'm not sure I can make this commitment. It's an investment. It's an investment I want to make. I understand the payoff in 4 or 5 years. But right now, it's a normal human response. When we are threatened or fearful, we tend to retreat. You pull into your cave. It's the safe thing to do. So I think
Right.
that's a challenge for us. And another challenge is also related to the political climate, which is we were very rapidly growing with international students. I mean, just
That's
tremendous
gonna happen.
growth. Our location, our affordability, the fact that in New Jersey you can get food from every cuisine on earth
Right.
and a grocery store, it really makes us attractive to students from other countries who want to come here. Um, that is really dropping off rapidly because U.S. government isn't issuing visas.
Mm-hmm.
It's all throttled down. So those are two difficult areas for us with special populations. We're doing what we can to weather the storm and to provide support and reassurance to our students. But at the same time, we have to be honest with them and with ourselves. There's many things that are beyond our control.
Are beyond your control. I was going to
Mhm.
ask that. I mean, how do you respond to those issues when they are such big, huge, lofty issues that go way beyond the sector? Those are, national issues that impact international communities, as you rightfully said.
I,
Yeah.
I, as a communicator, I'll tell you the first thing you do is listen and acknowledge. You
Right.
listen to people's concerns and you listen to understand, not to respond or persuade. And then
Right.
you acknowledge, I hear the fear. I understand your concerns, right? And then you can provide support, resources, education, and empowerment. Ultimately, people have to make their own decisions.
Right. Right.
But no,
Um,
we can't sugarcoat it. Um, this is coming back to trust, right?
right.
If we
It's
misrepresent or try to crank a spin machine, um, you know, might work short term. It's going to be a disaster long term.
long term for sure. Well, I mean, you just mentioned the short term and long term. It wades nicely into my next question, which really is, what are you, what are your goals over the next 6 to 12 months? What are your big top priorities? How are you thinking about things like retaining top talent, finding those students and giving, making
Yeah,
them as
yeah,
comfortable as possible? But even
yeah.
beyond that, what are you really thinking about and looking towards over the next few months?
We also launched 2 years ago a adult degree completer program, a Bachelor of Liberal Arts program, and it's taking root. And last year we had 39% growth in
Oh, wow.
enrollment in that program.
That's
So
amazing.
on the marketing side, what we're doing in my office is four things. First, we're completely renovating our website. If you go to montclair.edu right now, please don't hold it against us. It's 10 years old. We know it's like driving that old dented car around town, but we're building a new car. In fact, we're building
Right.
two new cars,
Right.
separate digital experiences. One we call the Visitor Center, and that's largely external, oriented towards prospective students, and one we call the Library, which is focused on internal audiences, current students, employees, and designed to give them the information and tools they need to do what they're here to do. So we're excited about that and that new web. I don't want to say website. It's like a web ecosystem is
Yeah, it
launching
sounds
about a year from today, so summer of 26. The next thing we're doing is, and this has been a momentum that we've been gathering for the last year and a half. We're shifting the focus from paid lead generation to organic lead generation.
okay.
Last year, we increased organic leads by 46%. We did it with a more intentional focus on web content
Okay.
and SEO, short form content, being obsessive about the numbers, and lots of calls to action. And lo and behold, it worked. So
Worked.
very proud of my team on that. Uh, we're putting in new technology and measurement systems. We completely tore down our old dashboard and started from the ground up, took all our data sources, standardized them, put them into a data lake, and we are building new analytical tools. We're moving from last touch attribution to multi-touch, and eventually I want us to get to marketing mix modeling. And those are topics we could talk about another day. Um, and then the last thing, and you mentioned retention, it's professional development. It's
Right.
professional development. I literally have 8 alumni on my team, and 4 people are actively pursuing master's degrees. We've got an MBA, we've got an org psych, we've got a public relations and communications, we've got, I don't know, something else,
Right.
but
Right. Right.
uh, but it's not just signing the tuition waiver. It's allowing the flexibility. If somebody can only take a class during the workday, allow them to do it. It's respecting that outside of work, they're putting in time in homework. So we have rules like don't send emails and Slack messages in after hours unless it's truly an emergency. And
Right.
then go
Right.
ahead and wake up the people that, like me, that need to be up at 3 a.m.
Right.
But other than that, you know what? Schedule send. Quick funny story on that. Over the weekend, I forwarded an email from another campus leader who was asking some questions, and I needed my assistant VPs to give me the answers. And I just blithely forwarded it to them on Saturday. And very much to her credit, and I thanked her for doing it, I got called out. I go, oh, hold on, buddy. You're interrupting my weekend. You're disrupting my peace of mind. This is my time. And we have a rule, remember? I think you made it, Joe. So she she called me back to myself, and I appreciated that. But those are the four big things we're really excited about. Uh, the thing that I think ultimately is going to pay the best dividends for us is the reduction of reliance on paid and
Right.
increasing organic. And that's fueled by the new web presence that I talked about, but also by a
Right.
very, very successful social media program. I want to invest there too and get a little bit more uh, professional staffing. It's largely a
Right.
student run organization. I have 16 students and one professional staff. But with that small but mighty team, I want to brag on them if I may. That small but
Please do.
mighty social media team has produced engagement rates that are consistently 2 to 3 times higher than the higher ed industry average, has created our president's Instagram account as the #1 most engaged Instagram account of 386 presidents in the US, and is essentially the best social media program in our competitive set by a long shot. We've got people sniffing around like,
What
what's
are
your
you guys
secret
doing?
sauce?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, honestly, we're just like, just look at our content. Very authentic, student produced, grabby, an element of fun, and the brand messaging is woven in a subtle way. It is
Right.
not overt selling. People don't want to be sold.
Nobody wants to be sold. The
They want to
audience
be
is
served. Yeah,
too
yeah,
savvy for that. We live and breathe in front of a screen. Yeah, absolutely.
absolutely. And our digital natives can sniff out fakery and
Yep.
inauthenticity in a
Yes, they
heartbeat.
can. Yes, they can.
Right? They've got, BS detectors that are set on very high. So, and that's good because we should be authentic. Let me end where I started or come back close. I talked about intense competition in an undifferentiated industry. The key to success in fending off those rivals, even rivals that are better staffed, better funded, is to be authentically who you really are.
Right.
Because you can't, Sharlyn, you are you, who you are. I'm Joe, I'm who I am. If I went around pretending to be you or you me,
Everyone would
we're not going to fool
would not
anybody.
work.
It's
Yeah.
not going to work, right? So why does that work in branding? It doesn't. Be
It doesn't.
yourself. Know thyself, the ancients said, and then be yourself. Stop
Right.
pretending to be somebody else. If you're a 2-year school focused on workforce development, embrace it.
Right.
If you're a 4-year school focused on serving the needs of your employers in your region with professional level graduates, embrace it.
Yeah.
Don't pretend that your job is to be Harvard or McMaster or somebody like that. That's not who you are. Stop pretending. It might make your faculty feel good, but if they're really that good, they should go work at Harvard or McMaster or wherever.
Yeah.
I mean, you're here, be where you are, be who you are. That's
Yeah.
that's what I'm
I think
that
that's a
and
great.
yeah, if I could make one change to higher ed, it would be that. It would be stop pretending to be somebody else or that you want to be somebody else or that you want your students to be somebody else.
Be somebody else. Right. Words of
Yeah.
advice, people. Words of
Yeah.
advice from Joe. You should take it.
For
The last
yourself,
question
be
I'm going to
proud of who
ask
you
you.
are. Go ahead.
Yeah, the last question I'm going to ask you in the interest of time is always sometimes it's a challenging one, sometimes it's super easy for people, but we'll
Hit me
do it
with it.
really quickly. If you could instantly solve one challenge facing higher ed institutions today, whether internal or external, what would it be and why? And is it the authenticity piece or is it
Okay.
something else?
Um, it's something else, and this is a message for all the presidents who are listening to this podcast. Understand that your communications and marketing people are not a post office whose job it is to print up pretty postcards and mail them out. They are strategic partners. They understand your institution as an enterprise, if they're any good.
Right.
And there's a lot of talent in this field. They understand it broadly and deeply because of the nature of their work. They understand the institution in some ways better than you do. and in many ways better than every other function,
Everyone
because
else.
I'm going to
Yeah.
say it. If you're finance, you're thinking about money. If you're facilities, you're thinking about buildings. If you're HR, you're thinking about employees. Who thinks about the whole enterprise, the whole system of systems that comprises a
All of the
complex,
pieces.
distinctive institution? I'm sorry, hello, that's us.
Yeah.
We should be your strategic thought partner. And if you're not getting strategic thought partnership from your communications team and you're
You need
asking for it, then you need to get some people on that team that can deliver it. But do not treat us like a post office or a pizza shop where you just
right.
show up and go, yeah, I want a large with mushrooms and pepperoni. Instead, show up and say, I'm feeling kind of hungry. Can you help me? And be ready for, let's talk about your diet. Let's talk about your
Right.
nutrition. Let's talk about your medical history. And we're going to recommend some foods that are really going to work for you and help you feel much better and help you thrive. Right. But if you want to show up and say, make me a pizza,
That's a great
you're
analogy.
not getting that value.
Yep. That's a great analogy, Joe. Is there anything else that comes to mind quickly before I let you go that you really wanted to touch on or really wanted to share with everyone?
I'd just like to offer to your listeners, Sharlyn, a message of hope. Um,
Oh,
things are
yes.
difficult right now. There's no doubt about it. We've got all the pressures that we talked about for the last half an hour:
Yep.
economics, demographics, politics, finances, competition,
Right.
right?
All the
It's not
things.
easy,
Yep.
but don't lose hope. Higher education is valuable. There's new research out from Gallup a couple of days ago, a couple of days before we taped this podcast, saying that the majority of Americans, regardless of whether they're red leaning or blue leaning,
Right.
see the value and believe in the value. Um, it is what we do in higher education: creation and dissemination of knowledge, development of human potential, is fundamental to the thriving of the world. That's what we do, right? So don't lose
Yep.
hope. Don't get discouraged. We will get through this. We've been through
Get
difficult
back.
times before.
That's it. Joe, thank you so much for that message. I think everyone needs to hear it. Certainly, everyone who has engaged with me in some capacity, whether or not they were on the podcast, everyone needs to hear that message. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your experience and your perspective. It actually has been a very, very thoughtful and generous conversation. Lots and lots of tidbits, lots of things to take away, real examples, practical ideas that people could use and adopt their own challenge, think about as they think about their own challenges and their own experiences. If you're a communications and marketing leader in higher ed and you want to contribute to this conversation, you can be an advancement or enrollment or a president or finance, whatever, as well too. But if you want to contribute, I'd love to hear from you because these conversations are more than just talk. We're trying to do what Joe said. We're trying to walk the talk. We're trying to build that roadmap together and share, contribute, or create a new roadmap for our field. So let's get to work. Thanks so much again, Joe.
You're welcome, Charlene. This was tons of fun, and I hope it added some value for your listeners. I appreciate the invitation to be here today.
You did add value. Thank you again. Bye.
Bye.